on Venezuela, there are survivors from your latest boat strike. What happens to those survivors?
Well, I'll ask Marco to discuss that possibly.
Yeah, it's well known there's an ongoing narco-terrorist operation the United States has been conducting.
A torpedo detonates near a U.S. carrier group, and nobody shoots back. That's not indecision. That's doctrine. 3 seconds of deliberate silence after a shock signature that looked like a war shot. In today's episode, we're inside that response. Carrier turns to open distance, escorts widen, decoys deploy, MH-60R crews spin up, and the acoustic picture sharpens from a ghost contact to a launched fish with a short powered run. Why did that 3-second pause save the day? And how close did we get to a spiral of retaliation? Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. How do 2 diesel electrics drift inside a carrier group's guard without a single ping announcing them? Start with the water itself. The Caribbean had a clean temperature jump that week, a sharp thermocline slicing the column like a lid on a jar. Below it, the ocean cushion sound. Above it, surface clutter bounced and smeared noise. The Venezuelan S-21 Bolivar and S-23 Sucre took the hint. Both boats slipped to battery, trimmed shallow, and rode the edge of that layer like a sidewalk. Speed stayed low, emissions stayed dead. The only moving parts worth hearing were a few slow-turning shafts and the faint hiss of water over the sail. Their shore command showed them a target. On a scope inside a coastal operations room, a single swollen radar return hovered near the edge of Venezuela's exclusive economic zone. That blob came from older processors that struggled with sea clutter, wind-driven chop, and the blinking confusion of multiple antennas hitting the same group from different angles. Latency stretched seconds into guesses. The track file pinned the blob as one amphibious ship nosing along the boundary. In the boats, the logic sounded simple. Get close, force awareness, and show the flag without lighting up the airwaves. Under the layer, passive ears lost reach. Sound bent along the thermocline, turning the ocean above into a noisy ceiling. Tankers and coastal freighters added a constant grind that raised the noise floor. A quiet diesel-electric sub can disappear into that mess if it keeps discipline. The Bolivar and Sucre did. They counted blade rates from far off, noted when cavitation spikes appeared and fell away, and built a mental map without a single active pulse. No periscope, no radar. Even their electronic support measures stayed off unless a watch officer needed a timed sniff. The crew's world shrank to the rhythm of distant screws and the occasional clunk of a wave slapping steel overhead. Crowded littorals are notorious for bad fusions of radar tracks. When returns arrive late, or 2 sensors see the same cluster from different bearings, the software can stack them into one fat target. Fast ferries, tugs, and a carrier's escorts can blur into a single surface smear that looks bigger and slower than anything real. Operators reduce clutter and end up throwing out useful echoes. The result is a phantom big ship that demands attention and pulls submarines toward it. Mile by mile, confidence rose with the risk. The submarine stayed under emissions control because the brief demanded it. No active sonar, no radar checks. A single sweep would have cleared the picture, but would also have given their position away. With each cable length, their mental model hardened. One ship, big, testing resolve. The mission logic tightened around that assumption. One commander broke the pattern. Instead of just shadowing, he chose a shallow-running warning shot. A short-powered torpedo, set to detonate harmlessly after a brief run, would send a message and end the dance without hurting anyone. It was the kind of move that keeps control in a gray zone. No hull strike, no kill. Just a loud punctuation mark. He called it. Tubes readied. The crew locked bearings based on faint prop pulses and a guessed track. The weapon slid out, motor lit for seconds, then cut, following orders. They had reached that point because the ocean let them hide, and their low-speed discipline made them ghosts. The warning torpedo came from a broken picture that turned a whole formation into one target, and a mission intent that mistook presence for a probe. The ocean hears in layers, but a sudden new sound cuts through every layer the same way. A short motor, a rising wake, and a planned bang that turns heads across miles. On the American side, that was the sound that stripped away doubt and forced the next move. A torpedo detonates near a U.S. carrier, and the order is to wait. Why does silence win here? Because the acoustic tape has a rhythm. First, a faint rise out of the noise. Then a clean motor signature, short and shallow. Finally, a sharp shock that looks like a war shot. That sequence hits the watch floors almost at once. Sonar supervisors call out the change. Combat teams freeze the plot for seconds that feel longer than they are. The burst is real. The water shakes. But the frame around it matters more than the flash. The timeline inside the carrier group starts with doubt and hardens into clarity. An anomaly appears as a thin streak on displays across the escorts. Operators tag it as possible machinery noise. Too clean to be random. Too brief to be ship traffic. The next second, the trace matches a torpedo drive. Not a long chase. A short run. Shallow depth. It cuts. And then the ocean punches back with a violent shock. On the carrier, the bridge orders a turn that buys distance and puts the wake between the hull and any follow-on threat. Escorts widen to build lanes. The strike group breathes, but keeps hands off triggers. The layers of defense come alive without firing. NIXIE decoys spool off sterns and start singing, offering a false target to any weapon still alive in the water. Soft kill first, then sensors, then teeth. MH-60R crews sprint to their helos. Doors open. Air crews arm Mk-54s and load pods with a mix of DFAR and DCAS sonobuoys. The first bird lifts to drop a passive line across the suspected axis of approach. The second bird seeds active buoys to cut through the thermocline. The kill box forms as geometry, not gunfire, with corridors designated and deconflicted so nobody shoots into a blind pocket. Doctrine runs this play. Separate the high-value unit. Deceive incoming sensors. Localize the source. Strike only if the threat continues. The ROE allow force if a weapon tracks the carrier, but the job is to prove the threat is still there, not react to a ghost. The complication is brutal. The self-destruct shock from that short-powered torpedo looks like a hit. It is loud. It is close. It lights off alarms and tempts a reply. In a tense region, that reply can spark escalation nobody wants. So the rule kicks in. 3 seconds. Count for follow-on screws, a pump jet whine, a second wake crossing an earlier path. In those seconds, operators search displays for a weapon acquiring and driving. They listen for the clean rise that says the torpedo is alive and closing. If that tone shows, the response is immediate. If it does not, you don't shoot at whales, decoys, or transient echoes. You don't fire blind at an unknown submarine that might not be there. Discipline holds. Escorts maintain tracks on every contact they can fix. Helos gate the area with buoys and paint the water column with a mix of passive bearings and active returns. Fire control teams build solutions, then tear them down when they find no second signature, no pattern that says another weapon is inbound. The seconds pass. The shock fades. The plots stay empty of anything that looks like a follow-on threat. The decision lands. No additional torpedo signatures, no closing transient, no motor ramp. Command holds fire. The carrier keeps separation. The decoys stay wet. The helicopters tighten the acoustic net and report nothing approaching. Below the layer, the Venezuelan boats ease away. Batteries precious and intentions spent. A chain that could have led to a shot instead stops at restraint. That pause didn't show weakness. It showed control, and in the calm that follows, you can see why time itself sits inside the defense plan. Not as a delay, but as a tool that shapes what happens next.
Let me ask you, that was in a submarine, right? We attacked a submarine, and that was a drug-carrying submarine built specifically for the transportation of massive amounts of drugs.